You may be familiar with a writer by the name of C.S. Lewis, largely for his very famous Chronicles of Narnia stories. If you've never read them, I highly recommend them. Now, C.S. Lewis, in addition to the Chronicles of Narnia, also has a whole series of non-fiction books that are often used to help us to understand or to explain the Christian faith. Books like Mere Christianity, The Great Divorce, The Problem of Pain, and so on. And one of the things that's really clear as you read through all of his books, fiction and non-fiction alike, is Lewis's deep, rich Christian faith. In fact, he writes in one of his books, "I believe in Christianity as I believe that the sun has risen, not only because I see it, but because by it I see everything else." Now, unlike many of us, C.S. Lewis was not born a Christian. He actually grew up as an atheist. He believed there was no God at all. And later on in life, he converted to Christianity. He became a Christian, which led to him expressing and sharing his faith through all of his writings. But it brings up a good question, and that is why? Why would somebody like C.S. Lewis, or countless people throughout history, why would people turn to Jesus? Why would people commit their lives to a first century Jewish carpenter from Israel? And there's a few ways to answer that question. One is because we believe it's true. You see, if you study the religions of the world, one of the things that you'll find is that every society and every time in history has wrestled with the same existential questions. Where do we come from? Why are we here? What happens when we die? What is the meaning of suffering? And Christianity uniquely has the ability to answer this question by being able to point us to a God who not only has intervened in human history, who has spoken to us from a distance, but who became one of us, who tried to show us the answers to these questions by his own life, by being born in human likeness. But it doesn't stop there, because when you look at the ministry, when you look at what Jesus actually did throughout most of the Gospels, he didn't just come here and give these great lessons or these great teachings. He called people. He called them by name. You see this throughout the Gospels in the way he reaches out to his disciples. And people throughout the 20 centuries of history since then have continued to respond to that call, C.S. Lewis being a great example of them. One of the things I often think of is something I heard St. John Paul II say when he was in Toronto at World Youth Day in the summer of 2002. And he said this, he said, "It is Jesus, in fact, that you seek when you dream of happiness. He is waiting for you when nothing else you find satisfies you. It is Jesus who stirs in you the desire to do something great with your lives." So we follow Jesus because Christianity is true, but we follow Jesus because we believe he has called us, and that in following him, we find this fulfillment, we find this happiness, even if it's hard sometimes, this happiness we dream of our whole lives. And finally, the reason to follow Jesus is because, well, God took the first step. He made a heroic act of love, a heroic act of sacrifice on our behalf, when he allowed himself to be crucified and to die in order to defeat the power of sin and human weakness over our lives and restore us to right relationship with God. Now, there's a great scene in a movie that I love called The Lord of the Rings, where one of the hobbits finds himself in the courts of Lord Denethor, and Denethor's son Boromir died to save Merry and Pippin's lives. So Pippin, in response to this, swears an oath to serve the king and the kingdom of Gondor with his life, and if necessary, by his death.
Boromir died to save us, my kinsman and me. He fell defending us from many foes.
Pippin!
I offer you my service, such as it is, in payment of this debt.
Now, in a lot of ways, this is a great metaphor for what it is to follow Jesus. Yes, it's true. Yes, he's called us. But by that definitive act of love, by that definitive act of sacrifice, Jesus giving his life for us, we have the opportunity, we have the invitation to return love for the love that has been shown to us. And so being baptized, becoming a member of the church, celebrating the sacraments, all of these things are ways in which we, definitively and then daily choose to be Christian, choose to follow Jesus, and learn to see the world as Lewis did, in the light of Christianity.